Wanna talk? So let's talk. Yeah. Talk. You wanna talk? You gotta talk, you need to talk. News talk.
I talk, you talk to Solomon. I talk, you talk to Solomon. Yeah, let's talk to Solomon. Talk to Solomon.
You gotta talk, you wanna
Good evening and welcome. It's Talk to Solomon time. That's me, Stan Solomon. I'm the host.
I'm Chief Steve Davis, the in-studio co-host.
And that voice you heard off in the distance, that's Brent Johnson, also a co-host, calling us from other parts of the hemisphere. Brent, did you have something you needed to say?
Well, what I said before about terrorism, I realized after I made my comment that some people might have thought that I don't think there's such a thing. There is such a thing. I think the problem we have today is that there is no distinguishing between genuine terrorism and perfectly innocent protests and things of that sort. And that's why we have these discussions about drones going out and killing Americans. I, for one, would not want the government to be the decider as to who is a terrorist, because the government doesn't act in the best interests of the people, in my opinion.
And by the way, the founding fathers would agree with you. That's why we have three branches of government, and we don't allow the executive division of government to be judge, jury, and executioner. All right, our guest this half hour is Michael Vilardi. He's been with us before. He's a former criminal investigator for the Internal Revenue Service. Let's see, how can you be an investigator of criminal acts if you're working for a criminal entity? But we'll ask Michael about that. Michael, how are you this evening?
Hey, great, Stan. Great to be on the show. Thanks for having me again.
Very good. Now, we're not going to pick apart the IRS. What we're going to do tonight is talk about whether we give people some useful information as to how they can save money and avoid unnecessary cost or unnecessary risk or unnecessary pitfalls in dealing with the tax situation. So I'm just going to hand the mic to you.
All right. Well, the first thing you got to be able to do is take advantage of the deductions that the government gives you. So, for instance, every year before you file on April 15th, the one thing you should do is max out what's been put in your IRA, which is $5,000 this year, and if you're over 50, it's $6,000. Stuff like that must be done because it's still your money. It goes into your account, and it defers the taxes until the point when you retire, when hopefully you'll be in a lower tax rate. The other thing that people need to understand is how the IRS works. Now, they have a system called the FDIS system. It stands for the Electronic Fraud Detection System. And that's basically a computer that looks at abnormalities in returns. So, for instance, if you go outside of what the computer deems its normal range, you're probably going to get flagged for an audit. So, for instance, if you make $100,000 a year and you say that you gave $75,000 to charity, you can bet that the IRS is going to audit you. Now, they can audit you in one of two ways. One is a field audit, and secondly is what's called a correspondence audit or a core audit. What a correspondence audit is they'll send you a letter in the mail saying, please substantiate the $75,000 in charitable contributions that you gave away last year. They'll give you 30 days to send them a backup for it, the checks or the receipts, to prove it. If you don't respond within that 30 days, then you'll be assessed the tax, and with the tax, the interest and the penalties. So you got to be very careful to, what you put on the return so it doesn't look like it's suspicious. So that's two of the things that you need to do.
All right, let me ask you a quick question. Is there a list, a book, a program, something you can put on your smartphone that tells you what those parameters are?
Well, what TurboTax does is they, at the end of you doing your tax return, they'll tell you if you're a high risk or not. I know the numbers because I work there, but I can't disclose them. So, I mean, reasonable expectations I'm getting into dicey water.
Well, all right, I don't want you to go there. Like, for instance, if you donate more than 10% of your income, I'm just saying that, you don't have to confirm or deny, but they're going to say, most people don't donate more than 10%. If you have business deductions that exceed your total income or that are 98% of your income, they're going to say, why are you in business if your expenses eat up everything you have? That kind of thing?
That kind of thing, right.
All right, let me just go around the horn here quickly, Chief.
First of all, I'm glad he likes TurboTax. I've used that several times in my life and probably going to use it again. But I'm just reminded of why we should be fighting now for the fair tax and get rid of all of these problems with trying to figure out deductions and figure out this and being called a criminal by the IRS. But let me ask you this. Let's say you make a legitimate error just in your computation. So it's not something you've tried to hide, but you forgot something or whatever. Is there any way to get out of the penalties and interest when you repay the taxes for that oversight?
Okay, the answer is yes and no. Yes, you can get out of the penalties. No, you can't get out of the interest. And you can get out of the penalties by filing a Form 843, a penalty abatement form. And they have the ability to wipe out those penalties.
Right, but the penalties are the big part, right? The interest is whatever it is, 6% or something. It's just a normal interest calculation?
Well, it's based on the Treasury bond. I think it's down to 3% now, actually. Over the last couple of years, the Treasury bonds have been so low that subsequently the IRS interest has been just, nearly as low.
All right, very good. All right, Brent?
Well, anytime we have a discussion about the IRS and the income tax, you have to understand in the first place, I spent a great deal of time studying the law, studying the Internal Revenue Code, and especially studying the definitions contained therein. Personally, I have not paid a penny to the Internal Revenue Service for 20 years, and they leave me alone. They do not bother me because I know what I'm doing and I know what is and is not appropriate. So the only way I can conduct any kind of conversation on this is to tell the listeners and tell the viewers that under the Internal Revenue Code, the income tax is assessed for, quote, activities effectively connected with the conduct of a trade or business in the United States. And the term trade or business is very clearly defined as the performing of the functions of a public office. If you work in the private sector, when you file a 1040 form or whatever form you file, okay, you are voluntarily submitting, otherwise protected by the Fifth Amendment, private information about your earnings. Furthermore, income is defined as a profit or gain from a transaction. If I buy something wholesale and I sell it to you retail, I only pay tax on the profit I have made. When you exchange your labor for compensation, that is in law called a zero-sum transaction. There is no actual profit that you have made. It is an even trade. Yet the IRS does not allow you to deduct the cost of your labor from the income tax. Essentially, what you are doing, most of you, is volunteering. One final point. When you sign a form, an IRS form, your signature is transferable. The IRS can actually take your signature and put it on another form. That is how the IRS can decide to recalculate your form and reassess your tax. Even though you did not submit those figures, your signature is transferable. So, I am absolutely not a proponent of pay your tax. I am a proponent of pay whatever tax you lawfully owe. But if you don't lawfully owe, don't volunteer. One final point. The money that goes into the income tax, 100% of it goes to the interest that is charged by the Federal Reserve for the use of their notes as your money. Not one penny goes to any government services or any legitimate government functions. And I know there are people who will disagree with that, but they will not be able to show me a single law that makes a private citizen engaged in private enterprise liable for the income tax.
All right, and I've heard that, and I frankly think it has great merit, but we're not going to, get into that argument today. We're going to try and focus more on giving helpful information for those who opt to volunteer. Now, Michael, I'll ask you this. You were in the criminal investigation area. People who lie, people who give false information are in fact putting themselves in a position to be subject to criminal charges. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, there's several things that make up the crime, so to speak. One of the things they're going to look for is a pattern, so they're not going to try to jam you up if you make a mistake. But if you do it continually year after year after year, then there's intent and willfulness. Those three elements have to be there, otherwise you shouldn't be charged. And of course, there is a dollar amount. I mean, the IRS doesn't want to go after somebody for $500 and try and lock them up. It doesn't make sense to do so. But if it's $5 million, then it's another story.
Now, I saw a headline today that Dionne Warwick, who was one of the best ever singers and is an extraordinary human being, has now been assessed $10 million in tax liability and is bankrupt. Now, I don't know about her business, and I'm not commenting on that, but we have seen a lot of situations. Wesley Snipes, who I believe is still currently residing in a federal hotel, all expenses paid, that we see well-known people almost always around March, February, March, quote unquote, made examples of. Can you comment on that?
Yes, absolutely. They do that for the publicity. That's planned to some degree. But as far as Dionne Warwick goes, she's going to need my number, which is 888-873-8825, or she needs to visit my website at MikeVilardiEA.com so I can help her. Because that's the kind of cases I work with now, helping people when they do get jammed up with the IRS so that they don't get taken advantage of. And I've had a lot of success. So if anybody, one of your listeners has a problem, they can go to my website, which again is Mike, M-I-K-E, Vilardi, VILARDIEA.com, and just hit on testimonials, and you'll see a whole slew of people that I've helped and wrote letters and how appreciative they are. I've been able to save people hundreds of thousands of dollars because they do know what they can and can't do, and a lot of times they can take advantage of people, especially people who don't know how they operate.
Now, Mike, you said Mike Vilardi
EA, transfer enrolled agent. Yeah, Mike Vilardi EA. Mike Vilardi
EA,
agent.
enrolled
EA,
agent.
right?
Okay, gotcha. I just didn't quite understand. All right, now, let's talk about do's and don'ts. One of the things that Chief Steve has always told me is, if in doubt or if not in doubt, shut the hell up and only talk to your lawyer. Would you recommend that if people are contacted by, called by, visited by the Internal Revenue Service, that they develop immediate laryngitis and only talk to someone like you before they say anything?
Absolutely. I mean, if it's a criminal case, they're going to read you your rights, and you'd be foolish not to shut up. I mean, that's that simple. Because if you don't know what to say, what not to say, you're just gonna get yourself deeper in trouble. I had a case like that when I was on the job. Failure to file case. Guy comes to the door, talks to us, says, "Yeah, I know I should have filed, but this happened, that happened, so I didn't do it because this." You got to go forward with the case because now you got an admission. He knew he intentionally did it. He knew what to do, but he didn't do the right thing. So then it becomes a problem. Had he not said that, it might not have been an issue. So you do need to talk to somebody that knows and talk to them, because otherwise you can just get yourself into more trouble. I mean, it's foolish to deal with the IRS by yourself.
Well said. Chief, comment, question?
No, just that's good advice, and oftentimes people can do the right thing and describe it poorly, and then they're in trouble for that too. So it's always good to get proper advice on how to explain something, because even though you did it right, if you explain it wrong, you'll still be in trouble.
All right, Michael, let's talk about charity. today we have the government doing their best to eliminate charitable deductions. In fact, they're doing their best to eliminate all deductions. But when it comes to charity, what is it that people need to do either before the fact, during the fact, or after the fact? And if in fact, you know, your church came to you and says, hey, we need to help this family out. Do you have an extra car? And you say, yeah, you could have that one. But you didn't do any paperwork at the time. Can you still get the deduction?
Well, let me tell you a true story about charitable deductions, okay? 1 year, and I'm going to make up names here to protect the innocent. 1 year, they were looking to return it. He got flagged by the computer. And it was a guy who was making $100,000 a year, and he was taking $60,000 a year in charitable deductions, 60% of his income. And he was a Jewish guy, and he was giving all the money to the Catholic Church. So they contacted him and said, can you send us the checks? He sends the checks, $60,000 worth of checks. Agent said, you know, something's not right here. Guy's name is Goldstein. It's St. Mary's. Not right. Let's go out and knock on the door. So they go to the church. They find Father Flanagan. Father Flanagan, can you tell me about Eric Goldstein? He's going, Eric Goldstein? I don't know Eric Goldstein. He goes, oh, Eric Goldstein. Yes, he's the guy that buys the change every week. Guy was coming to the church, writing the check out, the church a check out for the change and taking the deduction. Now, if he wasn't a pig about it, he might have got away with it. But what happened was, because of that case, the IRS said, well, we're no longer going to accept a check by itself as a valid donation. We want something from the charitable organization saying that you gave that much. So now they require a receipt. So if you just sent them the check, they'll say that's not quite good enough for us.
Well, the question is, did Eric get away with it?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because he, in fact, didn't give any charitable directly. He did not, in fact, give anything to charity.
Right. He got, it was in kind. He gave them a check and got back, in essence, cash.
Exactly.
Well, you know the story about the three religious men. It was the Jewish guy, the Catholic guy, and the evangelical. And they were talking about how they showed their faith. And the evangelical guy said, you know, I just cast my money on the waters, and I know God will take it to the right place. And the Catholic guy said, well, I just give my money to the church because I know they'll do the right thing. And the Jewish guy said, well, I just write a check and mail it to God.
Just what?
I write a check and I mail it to God. So it's kind of the same thing you just talked about. It's not how it appears. It's what it really is.
Right, exactly.
I want to bring Brent back in here, but I'm not sure if he has a question to deal with, since I know he doesn't. But Brent, do you have a question that might help our viewers on taxes? We lost it. Well, in that case, we can't bring him back. All right. Michael.
Yes.
If someone is, and we know this has happened, where the IRS sends out letters for relatively small amounts to many, many people. I've gotten them.
Right.
Dear Mr. Solomon, we have reviewed your returns and we have figured you owe us $212.16. And I write that check as fast as I can, and I put in the mail the same day because I don't want them to decide, oh, it was supposed to be $20,000. And they raised tens of millions of dollars issuing those small bills, and there is no basis. They just send them out, and the vast majority of people will pay that amount of money because they don't want to mess with the IRS for $200 or $300. Is that true?
Well, here's what they do. I mean, they validate all the returns through a computer program. That's why they ask you to file electronically. If you file electronically, it makes it much easier for the IRS than if you file a paper return. And by doing so, they put them through their computer system, and sometimes they'll actually issue checks back if somebody misses a credit or something along those lines, and they might have different information than you do. So the IRS might have a 1099 that you just didn't report or you forgot to report, and that's where those $200 differences come in.
But you're saying the only legitimate ones, they don't just make it up.
No, they just don't make it up. No. They don't. No, they don't have people going, how can we scam this guy out of $400? No, everything is done via the computer and through, they have. If you go to the IRS and you request your account transcripts and your income and wage transcripts, they'll show you everything that was reported to them. And a lot of times you find, well, you know what, I missed that. I didn't get a copy of that, or I got lost in the mail, or something happened. But a bank reported that they paid you interest of $100, and that didn't make it onto your return for some reason. And so the computer program matches your return with the information that they have, and if there's a difference, you get one of those adjustment letters. That's how it works.
Okay, makes sense. Chief?
So is it better to file a paper return or an electronic return?
Well, they'd like to see you do the electronic return, but
okay,
let me for them to do a paper return.
Is it better for the taxpayer to file electronically or paper?
Okay, what do you mean by better?
Are you less likely to get audited, noticed, reviewed, hassled if you file a paper return than if you file electronic return?
Yes, to a small degree.
All right, because it makes sense that they're like anyone else. They're not going to do more. If they can, reviewing computerized returns, go over 100,000 the same time they would take them to go over 100, one page by one page, handwritten returns.
Yes, right, because it has to be input. It's a lot more work. It's a lot more work on their part. That's why they're doing everything possible to phase out paper tax returns, because it's more work for that on their part. Definitely more work on their part. So if you have an electronic return, once it hits, then they can do anything with it. They can run it through various computer programs. They could, but once a paper return has to be input, and they have to keep the return, because if they lose the return, then they have a problem. While an electronic return, they'll have forever. Paper returns have to be stored. The original has to be stored. I am
on your advice, always going to file not paper returns, but I'm going to hand write out even the instructions so that it's at least 800 pages long.
Well, they're doing their best to make sure that, they're doing their best to make sure that they kind of forced everybody into electronic filing. I mean, they withhold if you're expecting a refund, and you file a paper return, you'll wait an extra 4 to 6 weeks guaranteed.
That's one of the things I plan ahead. I never expect a refund because I always underpay.
But they delayed the refunds anyway this year. Everything's been delayed, and I know in the used car business, for example, this is tax season, and the used car dealers are anxious for their customers to get their tax checks, and that's been spread out many more weeks longer than normal. And also we've heard a rumor that that in the future, starting next year, the IRS will not allow businesses to loan money against an incoming tax return. So like H&R Block or whatever, for example, won't be allowed to loan money to a taxpayer in advance of getting their return check back.
Well, let me tell you what happened. You know why they had to do that and were forced into it, really?
Yeah, because they're an oppressive government, that's why.
No, it was because identity theft, which is the largest growing crime in the country, the IRS has given away, and I'm going to guess here, but probably close to $1 billion, maybe even more, over the last couple of years doing identity theft. And the simplest way to stop it is by holding the refunds a little longer to wait and see if you get two different tax returns from the same person.
That actually does make sense.
Once that happens, one of them's false.
Right, that does make sense. That does make sense. The other thing is, they have knowingly given away billions of dollars to illegals claiming 27 kids, and they know it's all malarkey, but they give them the money anyway. That's something else I wish they'd stop.
Well, what they did do is they made it mandatory that you report the Social Security number, and when they did that, they did lose a couple of million children overnight.
It's hard to keep track.
It is hard to keep track, no question about it.
All right, Michael, we're out of time. I want you to, again, repeat your website and your phone number for folks that might need it.
Absolutely. The website is www.Vilardi, DIEA, MikeVilardi.com, and the number is 888-873-8825. And call me, leave me a message, and, if you really have a serious issue, I can help you.
By the way, if I talk to Dionne, I will definitely have her call you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate you being with
thanks.
us. Folks, stay tuned. We got lots more coming. We're going to talk about abstinence. That's, can the Obamas abstain from taking a vacation every other day? I doubt it. We'll be right back. You have a computer, if you're alive today, which means you have a hard drive, which means it's going to break down. Mosey, the backup people, for thousands, for Stan, for thousands of people, for tens of thousands of people, is simply common sense. You go to cpnlive.com, click on the icon for Mosey, the backup people, and sign up. It's just a few dollars a month. Let me tell you something. We had a break-in. They stole our whole computer. You know what? When they take the computer, you can't recover anything, but we had Mosey. We had the backup. We were able to restore everything simply by buying another computer. cpnlive.com, click on the icon for Mosey, the backup people, and give yourself common sense, peace of mind, great value, the best thing you've ever done. Sooner or later, it's going to be Mosey, the backup people. Hey, my name is Stan Solomon, and you know if I have something to say, I'll say it. And I'll only tell you the truth because I'm a Republican, not a Democrat. Democrats always lie. Republicans only lie half the time. I don't lie at all. This is the Fuel Mule. It's an extraordinary product that was developed by a friend of mine, an engineer, and it increases the fuel mileage on your vehicle. If you have a combustion engine, this will increase your mileage by 10 to 20%. It bolts around your fuel line. You can install it yourself or have your mechanic do it. It is an extraordinary item, and it flat works. I've been using it for more than 10 years. It's increased my mileage on every vehicle I put it on, and by the way, it will last forever. You can get rid of your vehicle, just take it off and put on the next one. Go to cpnlive.com. You'll have more information there. You can order it right there. We absolutely guarantee you'll be satisfied. The Fuel Mule. It's a way to kick down your cost of fuel and kick up your mileage. Don't you love the name? I thought of it. The Fuel Mule. I like to eat. Do you like to eat? We all do. And usually we run to the grocery store, we run to the convenience store, or we have something in the fridge. But power's been out in parts of this country in the last few weeks. We don't know what's going to come down the pike economically. Smart people are putting in food. Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves is a line of foods that you can put away that will last for a very long time. You know, they say eat what you store and store what you eat. This is great tasting stuff, healthy for you, a full line. You go to our website, cpnlive.com, and click on the button for Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves and see all the different things we have. This is good tasting food. It's reasonably priced. It will last. And it's worth its weight in gold if a problem arises. I know you don't think there's going to be anything that goes wrong. Actually, you do. This is smart. This is smart insurance. This is smart preparation. This is smart thinking. You have kids. You have a spouse. You have parents. You have dependents. You have an appetite. All those things can be addressed by a frugal but smart investment in Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves. Try them out. You will be tickled to death with the taste of them. And you know what? In many cases, people start to eat this and they think, heck, this tastes better and costs less than what you're going to the grocery store to buy. cpnlive.com. Check it out. Let me ask you a question. Do you like being sick? I have in my hand an incredible product. It's called TR10 Supercolloidal Silver. TR10 stands for a trace to the negative 10th power. The particles in this silver product are 6 to 8 angstroms, 6 to 8 10 billionths of a meter. Now listen to me. Silver has been the magic bullet for all of human existence. The Egyptians used silver instruments. We use silverware. They put silver in your teeth because nothing can grow on silver. Silver will kill anything but liberalism. I'm working on that. This product, you go to cpnlive.com, buy 1 quart of this product. It will last you for a very long time. Anytime you feel like you've been exposed to something bad, take some of this product, spray it in your mouth, or take a little bit and gargle it, swallow it. It will kill any pathogen. The average antibiotic kills 10 to 20 different pathogens. This product will kill 700 plus. Do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, do your doctor a favor. He's tired of seeing you. Get supracolloidal silver. Go to cpnlive.com, order the product. It's $29.95 plus shipping. I think it's $39.95 delivered any place in America right to your door. It's worth 10 times that. Check it out. If you're not 100% happy, just return it and we'll give you your money back.